was of no use now. Even though I was trying my hardest to bail out the water in my John boat, it wasn't fast enough. The water kept coming in, and at an alarming rate. My feet and legs were getting very cold, and I was shivering all over. This was my first time out on this lake, and I had no idea what the layout of the land was around it, and it was dark outside. I do most of my catfishing at night. I had found this lake by sheer accident while driving down a gravel road on my way home from work. I usually fish at a much bigger lake off the main highway, but for months now, I have seen this gravel road behind the lake and have wanted to see where it goes. After about 2 miles down the road, I found this small lake off to the side. The boat I was in was in pretty rough shape. The patch job I had done on it a few months ago didn't hold, and now here I was in this predicament. Luckily, I had the presence of mind to bring my life jacket along. I hurried and put on my life jacket and got in the water next to the boat. It was a lot colder than I had anticipated, and I was already shivering. I had to hurry. Then it dawned on me. I had forgot to take out my phone and wallet from my pants pockets in my panic. I took up my phone and tried to shut it off, but it was already dead. I put it back in my pocket. Oh well, I'll have to deal with it later. I had a small battery-powered lantern I brought with me to help see my fishing gear in the boat. I was going to hold it up in the air with one hand, and with the firm grip on the boat with the other, try and kick my way to the shore. I didn't want to lose all my fishing gear and trolling motor, not to mention the boat itself. I wasn't too far from my truck, maybe half a mile from me, as the crow flies. I could barely make out the shore to my right, as it was somewhat visible by the moonlight. I began to kick with both of my legs as hard as I could, going in the shore's direction. This was not as easy as I thought it was going to be, even with my adrenaline pumping as hard as it was. I was probably 100 feet or so from the shore. With all my strength, I kept kicking and kicking, stopping frequently to catch my breath. I started to kick again when I saw it. There was someone standing on the shore, looking in my direction. I stopped kicking almost immediately. I just stayed there froze, waiting in the water. By now the boat was starting to go under. I let go of it and began to wave my free hand in the air while yelling out at whoever that was standing there. "Hey," I yelled. "Hey, you there. My boat is sinking." Whoever it was, they didn't move. They were completely stationary. I had made it about halfway to the shore at this point from where I was originally. I stopped yelling briefly to see if I could hear anything when I looked to this guy's left. Standing in the water up to his knees looked like another figure. He was maybe 10 feet away from the other one, just standing there in the water, not moving a muscle. I started to feel very uneasy. What was going on with these people? "Hey," I yelled again. "Can you hear me? Can you see me? My boat is..." I stopped yelling abruptly. To my astonishment, the man had simply disappeared. I quickly rubbed my eyes with my free hand. He was just gone. I looked over at the other one, and then back to... Holy crap, he was back. Now in the water together. They were just standing there, neither of them moving or saying anything. Knee-deep in the water. I was getting very scared now. This isn't right. I gotta get the hell out of here. I turned to swim away in the opposite direction when an arm came down on my shoulder, followed by a terrifying moan. I spun around, swinging my light into the water. "Get the hell off of me," I screamed. At this point, I was freaking out. The light had sunk along with the boat. I kept spinning around, trying to focus my eyes in every direction. I began swimming as fast as I could to get the hell away from whoever just touched me. I quickly stopped and spun around again in every direction, trying to catch my breath. With the faint glow from the moon, I could now make out the shoreline slightly. I was horrified to what I saw. Now there were several of these figures on the shore, just standing there, not moving. I felt a very anxious feeling creep up my spine. I did my best to keep it together. I slowly started to try and do a backstroke up the shoreline in the direction of my truck, all the while not taking my eyes off of these things for a second. I was so panicked, I didn't even notice how cold I actually was. If I did get out of the water now, I would most likely start developing hypothermia. I peeked to my right. There was nobody near the shore there. I turned my body in that direction, hoping that one of these things wouldn't try and grab me like before, and then my feet touched bottom. Then all at once, all of these things started moving. They all turned in my direction, all in unison, facing me directly, and then they vanished. It then dawned on me that these things weren't people, though a part of me had already believed that, a notion I was trying to push out of my mind with all of my being. I hurried now and tried to get up on the shore. My feet were sinking into the mud with every step. I kept trudging along, ultimately losing both of my shoes to the suction of the mud. I finally made it to the shore. I looked around in every direction. I didn't see any of these things, thankfully. I took off my light jacket and my shirt, wringing it out the best I could. I was freezing, but not as bad now that I was out of the water. I took some deep breaths and made my way for the truck. I now had to enter into the woods. There was just no way I could follow the shoreline. There was just too much mud and overgrowth everywhere. I started my way through the trees. I could barely see anything. It was almost pitch black. It also wasn't helping that I was now barefoot. Twigs and rocks were cutting into my feet. I kept my hands stretched out in front of me to feel for anything in my way. As I was brushing away the branches in front of me, my hands landed on something very cold. It was soft. Just then, right in front of my face, my eyes began to focus on a horribly decaying face of a man, his eyes bulging out of his head, his face half rotten, exposing his entire jawbone and teeth. He then grabbed me by the wrist and began to moan like before. I tried like hell to free myself from his grip. I pushed him away and started running as fast as I could into the darkness. My feet were throbbing from the pain, but I didn't care at this point. I eventually came to an open field. There was my truck. I could see it not too far ahead by the moonlight, parked off the gravel road. I began to almost go into a full-on sprint when I tripped over something and crashed into the ground on my shoulder. It was a gravestone. I looked around and could see several of them spread out across the area. I didn't let this deter me from my objective. I made my way through the graveyard and got to my truck. Luckily, my keys were still in my pocket. I unlocked the door as fast as I could. I got in and started it and stepped on the gas hard, kicking up rocks and mud everywhere. I completely forgot I had a small boat trailer attached to it. It didn't matter. All that mattered was leaving this place. I did a complete 180 and about rattled the trailer off of my truck, but it somehow managed to stay attached. I winded my way down the gravel road at an insane rate of speed. The lake could have my boat. I was never going to go there again. I then finally made it to my home. This was by far the craziest and scariest experience I ever had in my life. I try not to think about what they were, or worse, what they wanted from me.